Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Fed Up, your no BS nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, working with clients since 2014. After swimming up diet culture's bullshit stream for so many years, I am fed the absolute up with how miserable it's making people feel when we are supposed to be getting healthier. This podcast is here to help you gain your sanity back so you can stop yo-yoing once and for all and finally learn how to trust yourself so you can enjoy food again without fear or shame while still getting to your health goals. My aim is to teach you how to detect the BS in not just the food and diet industries, but in all realms of life, because I know that, like me, we are all just a little fed up. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome on back to another episode of Fed Up. I am so glad you're here. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We are talking about sweet treats today. And as a baker and a nutritionist, people find it pretty ironic that I have such a sweet tooth and I condone having sweets in your meal plan and in your day and in your weeks, because without them, a lot of us will end up overeating or binging later on, or we just end up feeling like being healthy or eating healthier means that we can't have any of the fun foods that we love. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about how much I love sweet treat culture right now and how people are like, oh, I deserve a little sweet treat. But also it just shows what we're going to talk about today, how we've been conditioned to reward ourselves with sweets or with food. And especially if you were raised in an environment with parents who used sweets or dessert as a reward for finishing your plate, cleaning up your toys, or, behaving good at school or whatever it may be. And then you get ice cream, right? And even now, like, you break up with somebody and you're feeling sad. And what do? We want ice cream. Like, it is so conditioned in our culture in so many different ways to use dessert as a way of feeling good. And we have to acknowledge that even without sugar itself being addictive. So sugar itself is not shown to be addictive. It is the combination of sugar and fat, like in ice cream or brownies or like pastries, things like that, that are what we call highly palatable, meaning it tastes really freaking good. And we have learned how to make food taste even sweeter, even saltier, even more what we call umami, or like that meaty, mushroomy, like taste that is so much stronger now than food was like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, let alone most of humanity. So that being said, let yourself a little bit off the hook here, okay? Something's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. Did I say something's wrong with you? Don't think something's wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. That's what I meant to say. Anyway, I love how we are opening up about how many of us do reward ourselves with a little sweet treat. But I also want you to be aware of how often we are reaching for that for emotional reasons, whether you had a hard day or you're just out of habit. Anytime you go to the store, you're grabbing, like a high calorie snack and not realizing that it's like sabotaging your weight loss goals, or you end up filling up on a high sugar, high calorie food, but it doesn't have a lot of protein or fiber. So then you're like hungry an hour later anyway. So there are a lot of other factors outside of like the sugar is bad for you that we can look at to start deciding, like, when should I actually be eating dessert and how can I enjoy it without feeling so much shame? Because that's really what it is, right? We have all these dessert rules, and even if you don't think you have dessert rules, a lot of us do. For example, if you have sweet treats once a day, like at lunchtime or in the middle of the day, whatever, are you going to allow yourself to have dessert later as well? Can you have 2 a day or 3 a day? Is it unlimited to you? Do you end up maybe engaging in dessert and then feeling really guilty or feeling really bad about it because, again, like you feel like it went against either your food rule or somebody else's food rule that you have kind of adopted because we live in a diet culture. So sometimes it's if you worked out, if you ate a savory or like a real dinner or finished your plate, then you can have dessert. Or if you can only have one scoop of ice cream or one cookie, or it's special occasions only. When I ask people, like, what's a moderate intake of dessert, I've had people say everything from like, well, one sweet treat a day to only special occasions, and that's moderate to them. Whereas other people are like, man, I eat like sweet after everything savory. And they almost feel like it's just this like never ending, never satiating sweet tooth. And a lot of times that has to do with, again, sometimes habit, sure. And sometimes we do need to, switch some things up and add more nutrition to our meals and to our day. But a lot of times it comes from this like mental restriction. So when I say that cravings oftentimes come from feeling restricted or actually restricting yourself, it's not always like a physical deprivation. Sometimes it's mental. So I did an episode on cravings. I think it's episode like 24, I think. Ugh. Anyway, it's about cravings, the secret to cutting cravings. And I'll tell you a little secret, little sneak peek, is the number one thing that leads to cravings is a feeling of deprivation. So that can be a physical deprivation, like you actually have cut out carbs, cut out sweets. Or it can also just be a mental deprivation. So as you are eating the sweets, your physical is not deprived, but you feel like you shouldn't be, or you tell yourself, oh my God, I have to like go work out, or I have to compensate, or like, okay, I can't have sweets for another week, or whatever it may be. Like a lot of times we can like sneak in those dieting thoughts. But there is a line between like, okay, well, I can't just eat sweets all day long, all my meals. Like, if I am allowed to have sweets, won't that mean that I'm just going to like eat sweets nonstop? And you'd be surprised by how much, like, if you're allowed to have things, you almost like don't crave I need to hit the big red button. Now, granted, if you are neurodivergent or if you're really stressed out or if you have freaking 30 years of doing this under your belt, it is not something that could just like overnight be like, okay, fine, I'm not going to restrict myself. You have to practice this because the talk is going to sneak back into your brain and it's really powerful and it has its own way of, okay, well, I'm eating really healthy now and I'm working out and this, that, and the other. So like I cut out sugar, but it's not because of dieting. It's because like it's for my health, right? But again, we want to be able to intuitively say yes to the dessert and not have any guilt and enjoy it, especially if you are somebody who likes dessert, and then be able to move on. And how I look at it is a lot of times, like at first, you want to kind of take inventory of like, okay, I can eat dessert after every meal or like something sweet after every meal. And then I do kind of feel bad. So then I eat like less at my next meal, but then I end up like craving ice cream afterwards. Like there are sometimes these patterns that we don't always see. So that's the first thing that I look at is like, let's just kind of take inventory, see if we can kind of identify those triggers. And sometimes it's habitual, like every time I run errands, I get, Starbucks and this is what I order. And yeah, sometimes if you have some goals like weight loss or like improving your gut microbiome or getting more fiber, getting more protein, sometimes you've got to say no to the 500 calorie lemon loaf, and other times saying yes to it, enjoying it thoroughly and moving on with your freaking life without beating yourself up over it is the win as well. So this is why you can't just say like never eat a lemon loaf again, because you'd be surprised by how many of us like will not respond well to that and we end up sabotaging anyway. So when I say like allow yourself to eat more of the dessert, a lot of times all that does is truly mentally free you from this feeling of, I can't have this. I have to get rid of it. Okay, if I eat all this now, then like I won't have it for another week. So like it'll start tomorrow, or like I already kind of messed up. Let me just finish this off, who cares? Or just kind of like having those thoughts of like having another cookie again. Like I'm addicted to sugar. And it takes time to break free of those thoughts because it's not just you. It's like you hear your mom talk about it. You hear your friend talk about it. You hear the random neighbor, at the dinner party potluck who's like bragging about her like super healthy date sweetened brownie mix or some bullshit like that. And just being able to like fully enjoy special occasions, but also enjoy a brownie on like a random Tuesday. And then being able to like manage the rest of your diet in a way that doesn't put dessert up on a pedestal. So yeah, you want to be able to fill your plate with vegetables and fiber and protein and whole grains, but that doesn't mean you have to eat those things before you have dessert. So one of the best things that I love to tell people is randomly, like, serve dessert first. Now, granted, there is some evidence that like eating, something like super high in sugar first does kind of spike your blood sugar a little bit more than if you were to have something with fiber first, like a salad or fruit, and then have a sweet treat. So like there is something to be said about that order. It's not wrong. But if you find yourself like, oh man, I can eat a full dinner and then I can just like scarf down an entire, or not scarf, I shouldn't say that because that just gives a bad connotation, but you can crush an entire pint of ice cream, and that's a lot easier to do versus if you like serve yourself a scoop or two before dinner or you serve it with dinner. I mean, ice cream might be a little tricky because it's like sitting there melting. But like if you just serve the chocolate or the dessert brownie or cookies or whatever it is, like as part of your meal or even as an appetizer, like pair it with fruit, strawberries and whipped cream, or a vanilla, scoop of vanilla ice cream with some chocolate and some strawberries or whatever it may be, then it kind of takes the dessert off the pedestal. And studies have found that when you're using food as a reward, which is typically junk food, it increases, like this was done on mostly children, but it increases that child's intake of total energy the more control of that food the parents exhibited. So meaning the more control you try to have over either your own or your child's food choices, especially dessert, it like increases their desire for that dessert. So if you grew up in a household where you were like praised and rewarded with dessert, it's going to be pretty hard to break that conditioning. So one way I do that is serve dessert first, and also maybe have dessert before you finish your entire plate. And children are pretty intuitive. If you like serve sweets alongside their other meals, like sure, at first they might eat the chocolate, like, oh my God, mom's giving us chocolate. She never does that. But like if you were to do this regularly, the kids eat the fruit, they eat the other stuff, just like don't pressure them. And they tend to kind of self-regulate. And humans, I believe, naturally want to eat food that's good for them. We've just been like bombarded with freaking so much diet culture that it is messing up our psyche so that we are craving and binging these other quote unquote not health foods. And one of them is like the way that parents use it to like, encourage a child to eat a non-preferred food and then using a preferred food as a reward. So allowing dessert if your child finishes the vegetables. A lot of us were raised this way. And sometimes that might have short-term effectiveness, right? The child might eat it. Long-term effects of food-based rewards for eating may be negative. For instance, some studies have suggested that introducing a reward contingency might communicate to the child that contingency food should be disliked. Even when using novel foods that by definition are neither liked nor disliked because the kid hasn't had them yet, introducing a reward contingency where the food is an instrumental component impacts children's liking of that food. If a parent tells a child that they may eat dessert if they first eat their Brussels sprouts, a child is going to naturally expect the Brussels sprouts do not taste good, even before they even taste them. So parents will sometimes like shoot themselves in the foot, and we were all kind of like naturally like this. Kids are going to get really picky around 2 years of age. That's super normal. And like broccoli and Brussels sprouts are terrible. Even some adults don't like them. So leaving it to the research and the studies, and I'll link where I just read that from down in the show notes. I saved a link this time. There is just study after study after study that when we use it for, you can eat all your vegetables and then you earn dessert. We never do that with dessert, right? I always like think about the Matilda scene where he has to eat all the chocolate cake. Like he doesn't want to, right? Like being forced to eat anything, humans hate it, especially toddlers. And then we turn into adults eventually and we remember, because I work with these adults, we remember falling asleep at the dinner table or hiding food because mom never allowed me to have any, cakes or anything like that, or going to a birthday party and completely binging on the ice cream and cake and cookies and everything else on the table because you never had snack or quote unquote junk food in your house. So those feelings of deprivation in a current society that we're living in is not helpful. It's just not helpful. So one thing is unlearning how to use that dessert as a reward. And the second thing is being able to view it a little more neutral. So although we know a brownie does not have the same nutritional component as an avocado, it doesn't mean we have to make brownies equivalent to avocado. And I always joke that in the same way we can't survive off only chocolate, we can't survive off only asparagus either. So all food has its place. And when we serve sweets alongside other foods as if there's nothing special about them, this is where people assume that their child will eat nothing but brownies. And yeah, you should have some quote unquote discipline or restrictions or some boundaries around those foods, but it's based on knowing what's good for your body in a sense of what you can be adding into your diet rather than taking away from your diet. So your body, or your brain, I should say, your brain perceives loss way stronger than it's going to perceive any sense of gain, meaning you telling yourself to cut out all the sugar, to cut out all of this, that, and the other. You are priming your body and your brain to crave those things that you are losing. And then that's why dieting doesn't work. And then when you are focused on adding in things instead, okay, well, what can I add that's more fiber? What can I add that's more protein? What can I add that's going to satiate my soul as well as my body and my brain, which might mean a side of chips or a side of brownie or something sweet or something savory, or eating just because it's fun and you're at a get together and there's a lot of food. And sometimes you're going to overindulge because that's human nature. But yeah, learning how to make most of your meals nourishing in the general sense of the word, but not restricting yourself, meaning, yeah, you can have a hot dog. It's not going to, worry anybody except if you're having hot dogs every single day and you're not eating a lot of vegetables and you're not exercising and you're not sleeping well and you're eating a lot of added sugar and a lot of, all of these other factors. It's not the hot dog, it's how are you using the hot dog? No, just kidding. Sorry. Anyway, we'll keep this PG. So I want you to pay attention, when you are craving these foods or some of your habits around dessert, you're always saving it for last. You're always craving something sweet after a long day, on your way home from work, blah, 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 blah. We have habits and we have triggers. And being able to identify those things is the first thing to just being more mindful and being able to intuitively know, okay, I want something sweet. But honestly, I need I need a full meal right now. And I'm going to get something sweet because I want it, sure. But I'm not going to let it control me in the sense of I need to go get, just dessert, cookie crumble right now. And I'm going to neglect dinner until later. So learning how to fuel yourself with enough food and calories and carbohydrates throughout your day will also help reduce some of those cravings. And then you can just kind of work in your desserts as you like. It's okay to have a cinnamon roll in the morning, even if it's high in sugar. Maybe also pair it with some Greek yogurt or pair it with a protein shake or pair it with some fruit. That way you're not depriving yourself of the cinnamon roll, but you're adding in nutrition. And now you're full because you had some fruit and some protein and your cinnamon roll all the way up until lunch. And then at lunch, you're man, we're just going to go to Costco and do some errands. And yeah, I'm going to enjoy a hot dog. Sure, do that. And being able to learn, okay, yeah, it's better to eat something rather than go all day not eating anything. And then now I feel hangry and irritable and miserable and I have a headache. And then I just like eat everything in my kitchen as soon as I get home. That's what we're trying to prevent here, that spiral. So having that combined with knowledge of, what's actually in food, sure, but not becoming obsessive over like, I have to get this amount of carbs or this amount of added sugars. Like, you don't have to count out your chocolate chips, okay? But being able to not make most of your food ultra high in sugars, but also being able to incorporate a lot of those fun foods so that you are satiated and able to incorporate the salad because you're not deprived of the cookie. You know what I mean? And when people are dieting and all they're eating is salads because they've shut out, or cut out everything else and they've, you know, sworn off sugar, and then all of a sudden the diet ends or they just go out to dinner one freaking time. And then now it's like sugar galore. I used to have this client who would brag almost about, "Oh, I don't keep that stuff in the house. I don't keep pastries in the house. If I don't keep it in the house, then I won't eat it." There you go. Problem solved. And then like 3-4 months later, she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Kayla, I've gained like 10, 12 pounds, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I just feel so bloated, et cetera, et cetera." And I'd ask like, "Well, what do you think's changed? Are you stressed? How's your sleep? Blah, 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 digging through what could be going on here." And she'd be like, "Well, I think it's the pastries." And I'm like, "I thought you didn't eat pastries." And she's like, "Well, like I don't keep them in a house, but like, it's the holidays or whatever. So I just like stop by the store and I get the donuts and then I bring them home for my husband. But like in reality, I eat 3 of them on the way there and then this and that." So like she'll deprive herself for months and then she'll spend months just like completely binging on it. And that's what we're trying to prevent because long term, that's what ends up more weight gain, more obsessive thoughts, more giving dessert control over you. And yes, there is a balance of wanting to lower your cholesterol, wanting to take care of your health, but I would focus a lot more on like have the brownie and then add in some fiber, add in some protein, add in 3 or 4 full, complete, nourishing meals so that you're not just craving simple sugar because your brain runs off glucose. So a lot of people don't realize the reason a lot of times you want sugar or high fat, high calorie is because you're not eating enough calories earlier in the day. Willpower is lowering, ghrelin, your hunger hormone, is increasing throughout the day, and you become less and less able to like go home and make yourself a decent meal. You're going to just like eat whatever you can get your hands on first, or you're going to have cravings for pizza, burgers, ice cream, like those high fat, high calorie, high sugar foods, because that's how your body gets energy. So I want you to reflect on that this week and see where we can identify some triggers, identify some habits, and see if it's the negative self-talk and the spiral there, or if it's just a habit where we need to start adding in some fiber, adding in regular meal times so that we're not just like crashing at 4 p.m. and all you want is crumble cookie. So I hope this helps. I hope that gives you something to think about this week. And if you wanted to check out working with me, you can visit my website, www.kaylamariefitness.com, or shoot me a message on Instagram and let's talk about it if you're just kind of curious for how I help people develop some meal plans. And guess what? Dessert is a part of it. And they laugh when I send them like sample meal plans. And then I'm like, and a brownie and something sweet and something just like, I, love giving the homework of have dessert every single day this week. And then you're like sick of it eventually. And if I tell you you have to have dessert, like it's part of it, a lot of times it loses its power. It's pretty magical and it doesn't work overnight. Like I said, it does take practice. It's not linear, but hopefully that can kind of free you from the obsessive thoughts and the negative shame and be able to enjoy some cake on more than just your birthday, but also able to like, you had breakfast, you had lunch, you had dinner, you're fueling your body with the macro and the micronutrients that it needs as well. It's all about balance. So hope this helps. I will chat at you next time. Thanks for being here. Bye. Thanks so much for being here, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and tag me over on Instagram or leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening from. Your support means the world to me and only helps me get the no BS news out to more people. If you're interested in working with me in nutrition or personal training, check out my programs and courses on my website at kaylamariefitness.com and on Instagram at kaylamarie_fit. See you next week.